Hello, 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 everyone. Hold on, let me turn my screen share off. Hello, 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 everyone. This is Dr. David Snyder. Welcome to Secrets of Face Reading, how to read anyone instantly. And this is going to be one of our most powerful trainings, certainly one of the most significant technologies I've ever come across. So just quick, by a show of that's me in the chat and all that other good stuff. How many of you are joining us for the first time today? Go ahead and type your name and where you're checking in from in the chat, and we'll go ahead and welcome everybody the way we want to be welcoming people. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started while you guys are doing that. So first of all, welcome everyone. And today I'm going to teach you about how to literally read emotional health on anyone you meet in literally seconds. I'm not going to say you're going to be able to read their minds, but you're going to come pretty darn close. And this is going to be probably more useful than any other face reading or body language courses that you've ever come across. So I want you to stop for a moment and imagine something with me, if you will. Imagine for a moment that you're looking at someone and you could instantly know the real way that they make decisions. In other words, you could talk to them in such a way that you could gain their undivided attention and literally speak their language, a way that you could communicate with them, and so that the information that they most wanted to hear about or know about, it would just come right out of your mouth, like you'd always known how to talk to these people. You'd probably wind up never getting ghosted or missing a sales call ever again, right? That's some of the things that are possible with this. So whether you're interested in knowing, if you're interested in knowing whether someone's showing you what we call their true face or their private face, we're going to show you how to do that. We're going to show you how to look at somebody and know exactly what emotions they haven't processed. In other words, are they sitting on a ton of grief, a ton of anger, a ton of bitterness, things that could come back to haunt you later on in that relationship, even if they're smiling when they're talking about you. And ultimately, you're going to be able to use these tools to be able to actually influence people in the way that they actually want to be influenced. Now, this isn't fluff. This is the exact system I teach to thousands of people. In fact, I have many, many students out in the real world making a lot of money doing face reading, teaching face reading, and integrating face reading into their therapeutic applications, whether it be hypnosis, neurolinguistic programming, energy healing. Some people even are out there doing golden path readings where they literally just read people's faces and give them advice on how to get kind of their life together and things like that. So as an adjunct to any form of life or business coaching, face reading is truly one of what I consider to be a force multiplier in the world of understanding humans, understanding ourselves, and ultimately in influencing their behaviors in the direction they want to go or the direction we need them to go to be the person that we want to be. So for those of you who are joining us for the first time, if you could just take a moment so I can get to understand you better, go ahead and type your name and the biggest question you have about face reading, go ahead and type that in the chat. I'll go ahead and I'll wait. So King is coming in from Poland. Awesome. Let me see. Let me look at my Zoomers here and see who's coming in on Zoom. Okay, Jackson Danger is Jim as a personal trainer. Absolutely. In fact, one of the interesting things about face reading from an athletics perspective, if you understand how to look at somebody's Jing level, which is the Chinese word for constitution and lifestyle, you can actually look at them and kind of know what activities like sports or exercise programs are actually going to be most in harmony with that person's physiology. But you can also use it to figure out how to use it to bolster their deficiencies. If someone needs a lot of cardio, you'll know the best type of cardio to start to give them. You have to remember that the face reading system that I'm teaching you is actually a derivative of Chinese facial diagnosis. So in Chinese medicine, which I have 2 doctorates in, right? I have one in classical Chinese acupuncture and Oriental medicine, and I also have a degree in Chinese energetic medicine, which is all the shamanic, qigong, neigong, pre-communist approaches to energy that was sanitized out of acupuncture and Oriental medicine. So face reading itself in both those systems has a very, very rich history. In fact, it's probably one of the oldest forms of Chinese medicine that exists. We found manuscripts. In fact, I'll show it to you. Let me see here. So I'll go ahead and I'm going to expand this picture for you, and you can kind of zoom out a little bit so you can see it. So this is my teacher, Lillian Bridges. And Lillian, during her time, was hailed as the #1 face reader in the world. She was actively recruited by two different intelligence agencies. Her father was, in fact, an ex-CIA spy. And Lillian, because her heart was in a very right place, declined those offers. But her face reading system is extraordinarily accurate. What you're seeing immediately to the right or left of Lillian's picture is a page from a Chinese medical text. This was the second page in that book, and it's over 2,500 years old. So there is a very, very rich history and observational science and behavioral science, actually, that goes into face reading. Now, what I'm going to share with you is kind of like the best of the old and the new. I'm going to share with you some of the things that have stood the test of time, but I'm also going to share with you some of the more modern understandings of face reading. Turns out that it wasn't all woo. Turns out that certain facial characteristics are enhanced or diminished depending on the predominance of certain neurotransmitters in the body. And by understanding how those neurotransmitters work, you can look at a face and know if they're dopamine dominant, whether they're estrogen dominant, adrenaline or testosterone dominant. And those things are actively creating our behaviors and the way we perceive the world. Now, it goes much deeper than that, of course, but just so you know that there's a lot of science back here. In fact, I have a whole list of just the science behind face reading that I've been accumulating over the years. It's easily been one of the most powerful programs that I've ever discovered. In fact, prior to face reading, I was primarily a graphoanalyst as well as a body language expert. I studied kinesic interview and interrogation in college. But once I got into face reading, it made everything so much easier because literally their history is on their face. Their emotional health is on their face. Their decision-making strategies are on their face. If they're more action-oriented versus more cerebral, it's in their face. How open they are to information is on their face. All of these things you can use very, very quickly to create a profile of somebody that you can then use to navigate the interaction with them. And what you'll discover as you go through this is that certain facial features tend to have a very strong harmony with other types of facial features, and they tend to be antagonistic towards others. So let me just see here what we've got in the chat. Okay, so we're picking up speed. All right, so let me see here. We got Edie from Missouri. We got Emil, or is it Emily? Emil from Canada. We got Maddie. We got Kinga. Who else we got? Type your name, where you're checking in from. I'm going to over here look at my lovers, my lovely people in the Zoom world. So Joshua's checking in from Haiti. We got Mira the Greyhound. What's going on? All right. Okay. So the first thing I want to talk about is decision strategy. We got Deborah in Forest, Missouri. Alan's checking in. Very cool. All right. So let's get right into it. Right. Let's talk about ways that we can begin to look at somebody and use things that are immediately actionable. If this is the scope of everything that there is to learn in face reading, right? I've got time for this. So I promise you this. I will take you as far down the face reading rabbit hole as I can. I will give you as much information as possible in the time that we have. I will point you in the direction of where to go to level up your skills and get access to the complete system. Is that a fair trade? If you think that's fair, go ahead and type "that's fair" in the chat for me. Great. So what actually is possible with face reading? Well, can you use face reading to make more money? The answer is yes. Can you use face reading to have better relationships, find better partners, or improve the relationship that you have? The answer is yes. Could you use it to improve your mental, physical, or emotional health? The answer is yes. Right? Can you use it to help your clients heal or reach their goals? The answer is yes. Right? But the best part about face reading to me, aside from the obvious influence advantages, is it allows you to understand yourself better. Right? Every morning when you look in the mirror, you get an instant snapshot of what's going on in your mind, your body, your heart, your emotions, everything. And the fascinating thing about true face reading as a form of intervention, right? Whether you're doing it as an advisory capacity or you're doing it as part of a healing practice. When you actually unpack the markings on a face that are related to emotion, those markings start to change, and they start to change pretty quick. The first time I heard that, I thought, wow, that's the biggest bunch of malarkey I've ever heard. Well, I'm now the person I used to make fun of, because I've seen it now, where I've done before and after pictures of people in a simple session, and the faces are completely different in terms of the markings and the architecture after a session than they were before. So this is going to help you take a lot of the guesswork out of communication. It's going to let you know, kind of give you a way to fast track where you need to emphasize or the areas you need to explore in order to heal yourself and others. Okay. If you want to be the most popular person at the party, this is probably almost unfair. When people, you got to understand something. People's favorite subjects is always themselves. And so when you let people know that you have this ability to read people, right? Whether it's in an entertainment type situation like a party or a social gathering, or at a networking function, or even in a sales call, you will find that the amount of attention that you get and the amount of compliance and openness to your words grows exponentially. This is a phenomenon that isn't specific to face reading, but it is something that tends to happen whenever you, as an influencer, can demonstrate a greater degree of knowledge or information about a person's world or their worldview than they've even told you or shared with you. When you can do that, their openness to your intentions and suggestions tends to grow stronger and stronger and stronger. So there isn't a place that I have found that face reading can't significantly give you an advantage. Now, that being said, the power of face reading is that it does give you tremendous psycho-emotional leverage and understanding of another human being or a group of human beings, depending on how you want to utilize it. So to use the old cabbage that everybody has been throwing around since Spider-Man first hit the Marvel scene, with great power comes great responsibility. You're going to be responsible for the lives you leave behind you. So I'm going to teach you as much as I can. I'm going to give you access, show you how to get access to the full system. But what I really want to emphasize is that regardless of whether you have a lot of face reading information or a little bit, you're going to have power over people. And I want you to use that power with respect. I want you to get what you want in life, but I want you to be very respectful of the psyche and the heart that's behind the face that you're actually going to be opening up and exploring. So if you just take a moment, type in your biggest questions about face reading, and I will customize this webinar as best I can to your outcome. Okay, so let's talk about some of the things that are what I think in my world are the fastest to apply, the easiest, and the most universal. The first one is what I hinted at earlier, which is decision-making strategies, right? If you could look at somebody and know instantly, does this person want the data first? Do they want to know how they feel about it first? Are they going to trust their gut? Or do they need to know how it will help them, right? If you could look at somebody and know which of that data to present in which order, would that be helpful? Would that be useful to you in some way? If you think that's useful, type it in the chat. Type that's useful in the chat. Type a 1 or 2 or something to let me know you're actually paying attention. Perfect. So the question is, when playing poker, how can you tell if they have a good hand or bad hand, or if they're bluffing? Okay, so what you're asking for is what we call micro expressions. And that brings us to a very, very important distinction. When we look at the face, we have to look, I divide the face into 2 arbitrary categories. They're not mutually exclusive, but they are complementary to each other. So what you're referring to is what we call micro expressions. In other words, is someone concealing fear or contempt or anger or disgust in the blink of an eye. Those are small micro muscular movements of the face that happen anytime we try to hide or repress an emotion. Okay. To do micro expressions effectively, you need a pretty high degree of training, and you need to be really consistent with it, right? Dr. Paul Ekman was the first one to discover micro expressions, and they are relevant to today's discussion, but in the context of what we call active profiling or lie detection. What we're going to talk about mostly today is what I call passive profiling or passive face reading. And what does that mean? That means if I were to make the same expressions for 20 years, that's going to leave a noticeable marking in my face because of the overuse of certain muscles, the way the skin and the collagen have formed or deformed. And so, what I want you to think about is face reading that you're going to learn is the consequence of a lifetime of emotional management or mismanagement. And I try to say that with as much uh, tenderness as possible, because a lot of us have been taught to mismanage emotions under the guise of emotional management. Anytime you have to stuff down, repress, deny, or distract yourself from emotion, you are not managing your emotion. Your emotion is managing you. You are not dealing with it. And that's what management means. Management means to go in and dissolve it, neutralize it, transform it into something else. So when we do those things over a long period of time, it will trigger certain neural pathways that trigger certain micromuscular movements in the face, and that will cause us to mark in certain ways. And the Chinese, over 2,500 years, were able to map out these patterns very, very consistently. Okay. And Deborah's like, to some degree, it does seem esoteric. And in some ways, it is very much that way. But as we're discovering, more and more and more of science is validating the things that the Chinese have been saying, right? Like I said, I found out when I was creating my face reading love, lies, and leadership program, I literally found 5 pages of citations on different aspects of facial architecture and how they relate to emotions and behavior and things of that nature. So there, again, I don't ask you to believe anything that I tell you. I ask you to take what you get from tonight's webinar and go out and test it. Go read people's faces and see how accurate or less than accurate it is, right? Decide for yourself if this is something you want to learn, right? All right. So let's look at decision making first. So when we start looking at the face, we can look at the face in many levels and in many configurations. So in this webinar, we're going to look at 3 basic levels of the face. Okay, we're going to talk about the decision-making level. We're going to talk about the public face and the private face. And then we're going to look at what I call the emotional mask or the emotional map. So the first thing we're going to deal with is decision-making. So when we look at decision-making strategies in a human being, and we're going to use face reading, okay, we want to divide the face into 3 separate zones. So from the eyebrows to the top of the head, from the eyebrow itself to the base of the nose, and from the base of the nose to the tip of the chin. These give us 3 basic zones of the face. Okay. Let me just get my visual aids working for you here. Share my screen. Excellent. All right. So what you see here is what I call the decision-making map of the face. Now you can divide that face. Can everybody see this okay? I don't have my touch screen like I normally do, so I'm going to try and zoom in as best I can and not make everything like all crazy. So I want us to think of these particular zones of the face as zone 1, 2, and 3. Zone 1, which is the space from the base of the eyebrow, roughly, to the top of the head, is known as your analytical or data-driven zone. Pardon my very little typing here. Oops, that's not working. Oh, okay. Let me see if I can get my typing to work here. So this is the data-driven zone, right? I'm going to go ahead and expand this and see if I can make it bigger. Data. So people with a large upper zone, make that bigger too. Jeez, everything's small today. These people need the information. So if you go to somebody and they have a much higher forehead than the other zones, what you're going to see is this is the person who wants all the information, all the data, all the facts first, right? So if you look at, for example, I'll show you a data-driven guy. Hold on a second. Me. See how big my forehead is? Right? If you look at my forehead, those my upper zone compared to my middle zone compared to my lower zone, you see that I have a huge need for information. I'm consuming information constantly. The next biggest zone on my face is actually my pragmatic zone, my middle zone. People with a larger middle zone here, they want to know, what's this going to do for me? How can I use this? Right? They tend to be a little bit more in the present. They tend to be more functional. Right? Now, not that people with high upper zones aren't functional or people who have lower zones aren't functional. It's that they're more like day-to-day stuff. Like, how do I get more gas mileage? How do I get more return on my investments? Right? They want to know the immediate practical benefit of something. Okay. Now, the bottom zone, which is what we call the earth zone, or zone 3, is your instinctive emotional zone. When you have a big, large zone this way, right, you're going to see someone who has very strong emotional drives. You're going to see somebody who is very gut driven. They follow their intuition a lot. Well, not that somebody up here doesn't have intuition. It's that it's not their primary way of going to things. Someone with a strong lower zone is going to be very instinctive in how they do things. Okay. So now these 3 zones are the same on everybody. Everybody has an upper zone, everybody has a middle zone, everybody has a lower zone. But what we want to look at now isn't just the dominance of one particular zone. That's the basic, most fundamental way to do it. If you have to make a quick decision in how you're going to present information to somebody, being able to spot that largest zone fast is a good place to start. But if you want to cover all of your bases, if you want to be able to give them the full course meal effect of your presentation, then what you really want to know is, which zone is the first, which zone is the second biggest, which one is the third biggest. The reason is because we all like information. Some of us just like it more than others. We all like to know what something is going to do for us. And we all have gut feelings. But the order of priority that we give them is different. So if I can match your knowledge acquisition style and match your decision-making strategy based on your facial architecture, then I can make sure that I'm giving you the exact information that you want to have in the exact order and sequence that you want to have it. And as neurology has shown us, as NLP has shown us over and over and over again, people don't resist themselves. When you give somebody information that is in harmony with how they naturally process information on the inside, the communication friction drops dramatically and they become far more inclined to consume your message in the way you want them to. Remember, as you go through life, whether you're doing face reading or NLP or any of the other technologies that we teach, I'm going to give you a basic truth. And again, I don't ask that you believe anything that I tell you. I ask you to take what I give you, go out, test it, come back and decide how far down this rabbit hole you want to go. But this is something that you can test and through simple observation. The vast majority of conflicts between one human being and another is the difference between a person's intention and the interpretation. In other words, a person can have a certain intention in what they say or what they do. But how that intention or that behavior or what they've said is interpreted is not within the control of the person sending the information. And so you as an influencer will always, to a certain degree, be at the mercy of how the person on the receiving end of your message is interpreting that communication. Neurolinguistic programming on a basic, on a structural level is all about figuring out how to minimize the interpretation mismatch. How do I create communication that is, this is what I intend and this is what they get? How do I minimize that interpretation error? Face reading is a way for us to begin to chip away at the interpretation error, because now we can have a very good idea about how this person is fundamentally primed to process the information that we're giving. And we may have to present that in a way that's very different from the way we normally do it. For example, if you see, I have a very large upper zone, right? I have my second is my middle zone, and my bottom zone is pretty close to my middle zone, but it's still a little bit smaller. That's gotten because of age and stuff like that. I've lost a little bit of bone in my jaw, so I'm not nearly as forceful and in your face as I used to be, right? We can talk about that later. But if I'm talking to somebody who has a really big jaw, really low forehead, right, and a strong middle zone, I can't give them the information the way it's natural for me to give it and expect them to have the same impact. I have to change how I present what I say and what I do to match their particular style of understanding. And when you can do that well, people will just feel connected to you. They will trust you more. They will open up and they will take your advice, and they will act on the offers that you give them. To the degree that you mismatch that or miscommunicate that, the opposite happens. You get a lack of connection, you get mistrust, you get misunderstanding, and things just spiral. Because how many people, I show of hands, have ever said something to somebody and they intended it one way and the person took it in a completely different way? If that's ever happened, you go ahead and type that into chat. Yep, right. Now, we've all had that experience, probably more than once. But here's the other part that we didn't think about. Did you ever notice that better than 50% of the time, when the person takes offense at what you said, no matter how you explain it, they still won't, they still hold on to the original interpretation of that? Have you noticed that they have a tendency to hold on to that? True or false? Go ahead, don't be bashful, type it in the chat. True, right? Now, why is that? It's because of something called the primacy effect and what we call confirmation bias. How many people here know what confirmation bias is? Okay. So when somebody gives me information and I come to a conclusion about it, I decide how it means, right? I made that reason up because I made it up, because my nervous system created it. I think my system wants to believe that is true. Okay. I think I've said this. I think I've said it at least once today, but I'm going to say it again because this is one of the fundamental principles that drives a lot of the technologies that we teach in the realms of healing, in the realms of influence and persuasion, romance and attraction, hidden manifestation, the whole nine yards. This is something that is a truism. And so I want you to really take it and apply it to your life, right? It's doubly true in face reading, but it goes beyond just face reading. And that is this: what the human nervous system creates, the human nervous system accepts. What the human nervous system creates, the human nervous system accepts. Okay. Now, there's a couple of corollary stuff that you need to understand if you want to be an expert at influence, reading people, and communication. A, what the nervous system creates, the nervous system can change. And the nervous system never resists itself. Okay, these are three, I would call these neural laws or neural fundamentals in our system. When the nervous system itself comes up with its own meaning or assigns its own meaning to something, it will resist any other explanation that appears to come from an outside source. In other classes, we have called this reactance or resistance, right? If you can minimize the amount of resistance to your communication that a nervous system has, then the more likely it is to accept that. Okay. And that's what this decision-making strategy lets us do. It lets us know from a physiological predispositional level how this person is primed to interpret the information. And if we can give it the information in harmony with how it naturally likes to digest it, then the neurology will usually just go along with it. And that was one of the big ahas that NLP had, and when they came up with the idea of strategies. The idea was that if I can fit my words to the sequence in which your brain processes information, then you will tend things over and over and over again, regardless of where that pattern comes from. And it's true enough to be true. It's just in a practical level, the way most classical NLP practitioners teach that principle, you can't actually make it work very well in the street. And we've spent a lot of time streamlining that process to make it very, very user-friendly. But that's a different class for a different day. All right, so decision-making strategies. Zone 1, data. Zone 2, pragmatic. Zone 3, gut or instinct. Now, here's a way that you can go test this. If there is a technology campus near you, like here in San Diego, we have Qualcomm and we have all these different tech and biotech places. I'm like literally 2 miles away from the UCSD, the Salk Institute. I've got, no pun intended, and no disparagement, I got eggheads walking all over the place, right? Go to the campus at around lunchtime and look at the faces. Look at the shape of the head. Look at the shape of the middle zone. Look at the shape. And you'll notice the vast majority of people have a very similar physiognomy and architecture to the shape of their head. Then when you get a free moment, go to like an MMA gym, a CrossFit center, and look at the faces. And what you'll see is, again, not that you won't see big foreheads, but you'll probably see much bigger jaws, much bigger pragmatic zones. People with similar facial architecture tend to gravitate to the same activities, right? It's an aspect of what we call vibrational entrainment. Like attracts like, okay? Compatibility can actually be measured by the degree of similarity between certain facial traits. That's actually one of the applications that face reading was used for thousands of years, right? It works pretty well, actually. If you want to go look at a more modern understanding of this, if you get the book Why Him, Why Her, I forget the lady's name, something type indicator. Anyway, the lady who created it was written by the doctor who actually designed the profiling questionnaire for Match.com, which is one of the most rigorously tested personality typing tools on the planet. And what she discovered was that there are basically 4 personality types. Each one is driven by the predominance of certain hormonal pathways. And each of them, or the most of them, have facial characteristics that are expressed because of the predominance of certain hormonal pathways. Now, she doesn't go super deep into the science of that in her book, but she does point out that certain personality types, based on her system, are attracted to certain types and some are not. There's always this, when we talk about compatibility, people often say, well, like attracts like or opposites attract. The answer is yes, that both of those are true. Certain personality types, which can be seen on the face, are attracted to similar personality types. The other side of that coin is there are certain personality types who are only attracted to their complement. That can be seen in the face too. Okay, so there's a big, deep well here, right? But we're gonna focus on things that are immediately applicable to you today. And one of the first ones that I wanted to share with you was the decision-making strategy, right? So let's do a pop quiz. If I have somebody who has a very large lower zone, a fairly large upper zone, and a smaller middle zone. Thank you, Helen Fisher. Thank you, Nancy. Right. And by the way, her husband, Dr. John Tierney, I'm also a big fan of his. He wrote the book, The Power of Bad, with his co-author, Roy Baumeister. I recommend you get both of those to understand the yin and yang of a lot of this stuff. Okay. There's tremendous you have to, when you got to understand the negativity biases of the nervous system. Dr. Fisher does attraction, love, and romance, and compatibility. Very, very powerful power couple. So I'm going to recommend both of those sets of books. But thank you, Nancy, for finding the. Usually I can just rattle her name right off. Fisher, type it together. It's called, Simona, it's called The Power of Bad by Dr. Roy Baumeister and John Tierney. John Tierney is, you're welcome. That's what I'm here for, right? And they all relate to face reading in some way. And to use the word esoteric, sometimes not linearly like some do, like in the Fisher book. There's a direct correlation to face reading architecture and personality profiles. The 5-element personality profiles in Chinese medicine are actually quite strongly present in Fisher's work, right? Again, tremendous insight into the biochemical and biological aspects of face reading through work like Dr. Fisher's and things of that nature. So if I have a big lower zone, almost as big upper zone, and a slightly smaller middle zone, what do I know about this person? Type in the chat what we know. What's the thing I should lead with when I'm gonna interact with this person? I apologize for the incessant lawn tool stuff going on outside. There's all kinds of weird gardening things happening. So Deborah says they do a lot of research, but in the end, they will trust their instinct. Okay. All right. Deborah, as I look at your answer, I'm betting you have a big upper zone. Rodney, influence their emotions, but follow with logic and information. Okay, perfect. Leads with emotion. Bigger jaw. Okay. All right. I should have looked at your face first, Deborah. But so yes, when we look at somebody's face, we can know that they're very gut or emotion driven. They also tend to have very strong physical drives, right? And we have anybody in the chat who is understands handwriting analysis or grapho analysis or anything like that? Anybody there? Anybody in the chat have that? It's okay if you don't. I recommend, it's not quite as relevant as it used to be because nobody really writes anymore. But one of the interesting things about grapho analysis, which is also based on how the neurology influences musculature movement and stuff like that, is that there's a lot of correlations between some of the things we teach in handwriting analysis and what we see in the face. Okay, so is this useful? If you think this is useful, type it in the chat. Tell me how you're going to use it. Simona says, yeah, it's interesting, right? Right. Social interactions and work. Very good. Perfect. Okay. Now, what if it were possible? Yeah, Deborah says, I've been told that too when you change your writing. Yeah, in fact, I've used that actually therapeutically with some clients. And they actually turn their entire scholastic life around. And instead of getting an associate's, they want to get a bachelor's. And I'm a big fan of graphotherapy. It just takes a long time and it's kind of tedious. But yeah, you can rewire personality traits through the kinesthetic cortex. So Maddie says, my face did not change, but I was a know-it-all and it was closed-minded. Then I was near-death experience where I was in a coma and came out paralyzed with full amnesia over time, and the paralyzation went away. My memory came back slowly. My entire yeah, that's very common. Nancy says, yes, I'm a teacher. I see tons of handwritten paper. Yes, Nancy, if you could get people to write to change very specific characteristics about certain letters, you would see personalities change radically. In fact, there are certain personality traits in handwriting that will change in the moment as the person's emotional state shifts. There's some that don't change all that much, and there's some that will change in the moment. And you can do the inverse of that. You can adopt a certain trait in your handwriting, and it will backdoor into the nervous system. All right. If you guys want, I have an offer. Obviously, there's an offer at the end of this training. that we're going to make available to you. For those of you who want to take advantage of it, if you guys want to do a clinic on handwriting analysis, like a one-day workshop or something like that as an adjunct to your face reading, I'm happy to do that for you if that's something that you guys want to do. Because I find it fascinating. I just don't get a chance to use it nearly as much as I would like. But teachers, people who are dealing with a lot of handwritten stuff, the handwriting stuff is, along with face reading, is actually gold, because then you can use one to corroborate the other, which I found to be really, really helpful. Right. All right. Let's look at my Zoomers. Yeah, some people seem to be present with us. Difficult thing. Yeah, okay, we're good. All right. So for my next trick, has this been helpful? By the way, is this useful? This means yes. This means no. All right. Very good. I'm a little insecure, so I need constant reinforcement and feedback that you're with me. Okay. So just feed my soul. Anyway, all right, let's talk about another. I'm with you, David. All right, let's talk about another very, very fascinating aspect of the face. So when we looked at decision-making strategies, we divided the face up into three basic zones, right? Now we're going to look at facial masks. Now, this is something my good friend Chase Hughes talks about a lot. I'm a certified teacher in Buddhism, as well as I teach, or I have a doctorate in Taoist mysticism, and I'm working on my degree in Christian mysticism. And one of the things that all of these systems, from the most military-oriented, science-based influence applications and behavioral sciences work, all the way down to some of the oldest mystical traditions that we have, they're all actually saying the same things. And that is this: you are not your personality. As my friend Chase likes to say, every human you meet is wearing a mask. That mask is the face they want you to the person they want you to perceive them as. But what if there was a way to see behind the mask? What if there was a way to look at somebody and know a little bit more, maybe a lot more, depending on how aware you are and and knowing what to look for you are, what kind of a person that they're most likely like when nobody's looking, when the blinds are drawn, when the doors are locked and closed, who are they when nobody's around? If there was a way to glimpse that version of that person and to be able to use both versions to make your life better, would that be helpful? Would that be useful? Type it in the chat. Okay, good. So for my next trick, I'm gonna try and split my screen on this one. Sometimes I have good luck with splitting my screen, sometimes not. So just bear with me here while I do this. They've done, I think, I'm not sure, but I think they've done some kind of updates to the Zoom interface, and nothing works exactly the way it's supposed to work anymore. So Kinga says to have access to extra intel. Yes. Yeah. And I'm all about intel. Believe me. In fact, I'm going to show you a way to get some of the most powerful intelligence gathering and personality profiling tools I've ever come across by the end of the webinar. So let me go ahead and share this with you. Okay. Let me make this just a little bigger, just so people can see. All right. Let's see if this works. How does this look, guys? Is this okay? You know what? I don't like that. Let me change it again. This is one of the reasons why I keep an extra monitor next to me, so I know what I see actually what you're seeing. Let me try this. Put me over here. Okay. So can everybody see that picture okay? Go to my Zoomers here. Oops, I don't want that. Come on, where's my chat? Okay, good. All right. So now when we look at somebody's face now, if we take a line and we draw it directly down the front of the face. Now, this line, by the way, is called the river of life. And it tells us all kinds of interesting things about a person's life, their history, their constitution, if they're going to have certain types of problems later in life. There's even facial architecture here that actually tells you about a person's spending habits. It's kind of weird, right? But those aren't the things that are most immediately applicable to what we're doing. So, as we know, the left side of our brain, the left side of our face is controlled by the right side of our brain. The right side of our face is controlled by the left side of our brain. So the right side is creative, intuitive, holistic, emotional. The left side is more factual and logical and analytical. Okay. Now, the right side of a person's face is controlled by the left brain. And this is the face you show the world. So oops, sorry about that. So this face that's your right side, that's your public face. So again, this is somebody looking at you. This is not basically mirror image, right? Right. So the right side of your face, the right side of a person's face shows the world who they want the world to see. The left side of a person's face is their private side. And this is the part of themselves that they keep secret. How many people here remember a very famous singer named Billy Joel? Anybody? Any Billy Joel fans here? Right. How many people remember a song he did called The Stranger? Right. Welcome to the stranger. The stranger is here. Now, does that mean the stranger is some adrenaline junkie that does all kinds of crazy, bizarre, self-destructive things? Not always, no. Right. But the private face is the person we are that we don't necessarily want people to see. It tends to be the part of us that, from my experience, let me see if I can type this in here without having to just like shrink everything. It's the part of us that's more self-conscious. What does that mean? Guarded, vulnerable. Private is kind of redundant, but this is the part of us that we only show people that we deeply trust, and sometimes not even then. Now, both faces are useful. Both faces are useful because when you're dealing with somebody in a business context, you always play to the person they want you to believe they are, right? In our influence training, we have this very specific formula we call PANDA. Now, PANDA is an acronym. It stands for positive association, negative dissociation algorithm. It's a way of creating two dueling identities in people. One they want to move towards and be seen as, and the other they are instinctively repulsed by and want to move away from. We can start to uncover and unpack what that looks like through understanding the different zones of the face. Okay. Now they're two separate classes. We won't be talking about PANDA in this class, but if you want the influence trainings that go along with this, I'll show you where to go and how to get there. But you can literally set up polarities where a person is moving away from one face and towards another face, right? Now, when we look at public and private, what do we really look for, right? We know what each side stands for, but what do we look for? And before I move into that, type any questions you have about what I've covered so far in terms of the public versus the private side. What questions do you have, if any? You guys are really smart, or I'm a really good teacher. I'm not sure which. All right. In that case, are public and private ever the same? They can be very close, and that's about. And you're gonna figure that out with the aspect I'm about to cover. Is this the same for left or right-handed people? Yes. Their handedness does not seem to play a role in facial architecture, which is fascinating because there are certain things, like, for example, when we look at NLP, and probably one of the most controversial aspects of NLP, the one that's probably been contended the most, is in the realm of eye accessing cues, and rightly so. But eye accessing cues can flip depending on whether the person's right hand dominant or left hand dominant. This does not seem to be that way. This is pretty specific. It's pretty consistent, male or female, regardless of hand dominance. Okay. Nancy's asking, can you tell more about the likelihood of spending money in the face? Yes, you can. Oh, are you asking me if I can tell more about it? Yeah, what we'll do is I will finish up the first two maps that I wanted to cover today. And then with your permission, I'll show you how to get access to the complete training system I put together for you. And then in part 3 of our webinar, after we're done with that, with the going through the packaging and the offering and stuff like that, I'll go through the emotional map of the face, and I'll take a few moments and I'll show you where spending patterns can be seen on the face. It's a little bit more woo-woo than I usually try to do in a webinar that's designed for the general public, because you guys don't really, some of you are into the woo and some of you aren't, right? And so I give you things that you can just go out and prove that have the science behind them, are immediately applicable. And if you decide you want to go deeper into that, there's a pathway for that. Paul Brooker says, Denzel Washington was once noticed for having both sides of his face being identical. What does that mean? Biologically, evolutionarily, the more symmetrical a face is, the more attractive it's perceived as. Okay, that is a evolutionary byproduct of health. Okay, and that's exactly, it's a great question because it leads into exactly what we're going to look at. Car salespeople would love this. Yes, Nancy. As a matter of fact, I did face reading on my realtor once, and I actually got a better deal on the house I bought. Turns out she was Asian, and she was, they love this kind of stuff. My wife certainly does, because she's Asian and she loves it too. Again, as far as I have not found, aside from the influence technologies that I teach, I'm going to be very upfront. I love the influence technologies I teach, but I have not found a better social lubricant, personality profiling tool, or force multiplier to everything else than face reading. There is no place I have not found that I have played with this that face reading has not enhanced my results. How many people here want better results, more consistent results in their life? Yes or yes, as T. Harv Eker would say, right? If you want more results, more consistent results, more yeses in your life, you want to understand yourself better, understand your partners, your spouses, your children, your teams, you want to motivate people, there is no better amplification tool than face reading. And I'm always looking for something better. I'm always looking for something better. I haven't found it yet. Even my good friend Chase has started talking about face reading in a very different way than he used to. It's kind of gratifying to see it on some of his. What does the size mean, if anything? Paul, I don't know what that means. What does the size mean? Does the face ever reflect trauma, child abuse, or trauma? If so, Denise, the face reflects every kind of trauma. Every kind of trauma. Paul, the nose is a huge feature that relates directly to a person's ego and identity. You can often tell who's going to be super successful in business by the size and shape of their nose. It's stupidly consistent, right? So yeah, there's answers to every question you guys are asking me, but if I keep answering those questions, I'm never going to get to the maps of the face that I wanted to show you guys. But hold on to those questions. And I promise you at the in part 3 of the webinar, I will absolutely answer those for you. Okay, so when we look at facial architecture, what are we looking for? We're looking for size and symmetry, which interestingly is what you guys mentioned, right? We're looking at the size of traits. We're looking at the symmetry of traits. We're looking for length and depth. Okay, and we want to always be comparing. So let me give you an example. One of the first things we want to know about somebody is how open are they emotionally. Open emotions can be seen in the size and shape of the eyes. So someone with very big, wide eyes is more emotionally open than someone whose eyes are very small, or someone who has big eyes but holds them closed. So they're kind of squinty, right? So one of the first things we want to look at when we're comparing private versus public is, which eye is bigger? If this eye is bigger, which is their public side, then we know that this person is far more open to data, to input, to communication than they are when they're behind closed doors if the eye is smaller here, right? Conversely, what if it's reversed, right? If this eye is bigger and this eye is smaller, first of all, we have a pretty profound asymmetry here, don't we? Just if you just go by my circles. This eye is obviously bigger. This eye is obviously held closed. This person is way more closed off. They're way more guarded. They're way more defensive. They filter everything they see and hear, and they filter everything they think and say. So before the words ever come out of their mouth, they've edited, re-edited, revised it, listened to it over and over again. And when you present to them, they're filtering and analyzing everything you say. So you can say that the size, the openness of the eye is directly proportional to the amount of analysis and secretiveness going on. Okay. So I'm looking for symmetry. So Simona's asking, how are we adjusting this for different race traits, bigger, smaller? When you look at a person's face, you have, the Chinese didn't go by like yards and inches and centimeters and things like that. What they did was they worked on a measurement known as a body inch. In Chinese medicine, it's known as a chun, C-U-N. And so they looked at the general proportions of a face and whether a trait was out of proportion or in proportion. So it didn't really matter if I have an Asian face here or I have an African-American face here. When I look at that face, I want to look at the features that are proportionately larger or disproportionately smaller than the average facial trait. Now, to give you an example, now, if anybody's ever been in like an art class, you might be familiar with this. For example, your face from temple to temple, basically, in the average face is 5 eyes wide. So if you were to take the width of your eye from canthus to canthus, you start at your temple, your face is 5 eyes wide. That's analogous to what the Chinese would call a body inch. A body inch was based on what is the average proportional measurement for that face. Okay. And there are certain, and then they divided things up into elemental characteristics. So for example, again, not to get too far off field, but somebody who has very pointy features, their ears are a little bit more elf-like, or a little bit more tip here. This person will be considered more fiery, right? they would have a lot more fire energy. So they would classify that face based on the predominance of certain elements. Now, for those of you who want to go deeper into the classical approach, I have two versions of this. I have the modern approach and I have the classical approach. We can get into the different 5 elements. But when we look at different physiognomies, different racial types, they're more alike than they're not. If I try to compare a Caucasian face to an Asian face, I'm going to have trouble. But if I understand the principles by which face reading is done, I can look at an Asian face or an African American face or a Hispanic face, and I can still read it quite effectively because what the traits mean doesn't change, but you have to gauge the face based on its own proportions. Okay. In fact, I'm actually working on, I started a project probably 2 or 3 years ago. I'm actually working on a face reading manual with the different the most common ethnicities in it, so people can see what an African American fire face looks like versus an African American metal face versus a Latina or Latinx metal face or a fire. I actually started working. It's a big job. It's a big job. But I think it's something that would help people eventually, and I'll probably offer it first to my advanced students to pressure test it and make sure all the information is accurate and stuff like that. But these are things, you're not the first person to ask me that, right? So understand that when we look at a face, we have to look at what's the average of that face, which traits are disproportionately larger or smaller, and where does the symmetry lie? And we can do tremendously powerful, very, very comprehensive readings just from that. Okay, so if I have a person, just to kind of close this, if I have a person with a wrinkle here that goes like this, and the other side of their face, it's this. What do I know? But when we look at wrinkles on the face, we want to look at the depth of the wrinkle. The depth of the wrinkle indicates the degree of emotional repression. The length indicates how long it's been there. Now, what's interesting is wrinkles can actually migrate. So wrinkles tend to start at the center line of the face, and they tend to migrate outward. So a wrinkle that started here and is over here somewhere is actually older than something that's right here. And so from a therapeutic perspective, Chinese vibrational psychotherapy perspective, we know that when the lines are big and thick like this, it's intense. There's a lot of energy in that emotion. If the line is very long, it's usually very old. Well, most of your wrinkles are the result of overuse of facial muscles, which is almost always a direct sign of emotional repression. Okay, so what happens? This is very common, and again, I'm not anybody. How many face readers do we have on the group tonight that have been through my training? One of the weirdest things I've ever experienced, and it happens over and over and over again, is if you unpack the emotional energy underlying a wrinkle, and you successfully neutralize that emotion, that wrinkle starts to fade and go away. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen, but it kept happening. Amelia says, I went through face training. So Amelia, have you had this experience where you've helped somebody unpack a marking and the face changed? And it's okay if you didn't. Yeah, and others and myself. It's the weirdest thing, guys. What causes someone to constantly wrinkle their forehead when speaking? Overthinking. Overthinking and processing certain types of emotions. Okay. In fact, if we have time, I'll go through horizontal lines on the face. It's not directly part of the emotional map, but it's something that so many people have. It's worth talking about. Okay. You guys having fun with this? Is this useful? Cool. All right. Excellent. All right. So when we look at the face now, we want to divide the face in half. When we look at the right side of the face, how big is the eye? How high is the eyebrow? How deep or long are the wrinkles? Is the mouth turned down? Is the mouth turned up? Are the lips full or are they compressed? And, and how does that compare to the other side of the face? How symmetrical is it? Now, if you guys want to test this, you can probably go to your app store and find one of those photo apps that will take the right side of your face and superimpose it on the left side of your face. And you can take two lefts and put them together. You can take two rights and put them together. And you'll see two very different people looking at you when you have two right sides together and two left sides together, right? You're yin and yang. You're a little bit of both. You're a little bit country. You're a little bit rock and roll. Okay. All right. So that being said, I put together a special package for you guys that I think you guys will really, really enjoy. I know it will move the needle in your life. It will change things for you in ways that you haven't even begun to really appreciate. But if you're ready to really become a master of this and use it in your everyday life, I'd like to share something with you, if that's okay. Would that be okay? Okay, and be sure to stick to the end of the webinar because we're going to circle back. We're going to cover the emotional map of the face. We're going to look at spending habits. And maybe if we have time, we'll look at maybe some romantic compatibility or some other use cases where we can do this. Okay. So without further ado, I'd like to present to you the Face Reading for Fun and Profit, How to Read Anyone Instantly Home Study course. This is a program I put together many, many years ago. It was a reorganization of the work of my teacher, Lillian Bridges, as well as my studies with people like Eric Standalp and Mac Fulfer. I've studied their materials. Chase Hughes obviously was a big factor in my life in terms of understanding the architecture of the face. I studied kinesic interview and interrogation in college. It was part of my training. So I've been doing this a long time. And when I looked at the face reading material that my teacher Lillian was giving out, it was beautiful, it was amazing, it was fascinating, and it was way too circular. So what I did was I took her information, I combined it with some of the most modern scientific understandings, and we reorganized it so that you don't need to know Chinese medicine. You don't need to understand Chinese 5 elements. You don't need to know anything about Chinese medicine to be able to read a person's face with 90% plus accuracy from the hairline to the chin line in as little as 90 seconds, and have a working profile that you can use to influence that person and help them navigate change if that's what you're here to do. This program is all about helping you understand yourself first and others second. It's about learning the true way of reading people instantly, effortlessly, automatically in any situation or circumstance. Once you understand how people work, how they think, what their temperament is, what their attitudes are, how they respond to different types of influence, you'll automatically have a leg up in learning how to do one of the things we all want to do: predict and influence human behavior. That's why you're here, right? You want to understand people. Why? So you can do something with that information. So you can take the randomness out of your life. And if you're here to take more randomness out of your life and get more control and influence and predictability in it, go ahead and type 1 in the chat, right? If you want to help more people, this will do it like gangbusters. Nothing will open people up to you faster than face reading. It bridges people like it's nobody's business. In fact, that's actually one of the reasons why I asked you to be careful with this, because you can literally break a shell around someone's emotions in 3 seconds or less just by looking at a feature and naming it. I think I hold my record is contested, but I think I hold the record for breaking somebody the fastest. I walked up to somebody in a seminar, looked at their ear and said, "What happened when you were 5?" And we spent 3 hours clearing all the traumas behind that one marking that we unpacked. So I want you to use this as the powerful tool that it is, but I want you to be very careful with it, because you will have tremendous power over people, right? And I want you to use that power to make the world a better place. I want you to use it to keep yourself safe, to get wealthy and healthy and happy, but I want you to be a benefactor to the world. I want you to be a force for good and an agent of change. You're going to wind up feeling more confident. You're obviously going to feel more powerful. And if the game of life is in fact a game, you're going to have the cheat codes. You're going to be able to know what people are thinking, what they're feeling, what they're most likely to do in a given situation or circumstance. And as a byproduct of this, people are going to find you the most fascinating, charming, charismatic, and irresistible person they know. It will not be uncommon. If you go to a social gathering and you start telling people that you're a face reader and you start reading faces, Nobody will talk to anybody but you. I've had this happen. I've had to learn when to shut up when it comes to this. So for those of you who are looking to take your practices to the next level, your influence game to the next level, I invite you to grab your version of this as soon as it's available. So this offer is good until March 31st at 11:59. That's p.m. today. Pacific, that's today. So, and so what is your Secrets of Face Reading course going to actually cover? Well, I'm glad you asked. It's going to teach you how to assess personality and temperament. It's going to teach you how to manage people's thinking and decision-making strategies, how to unlock the emotional traumas that they've been repressing so you don't inadvertently step on a landmine, right? It's going to teach you how to look at people's management styles so you know if you're putting teams together or you're part of a team, or someone you know or love is going to be working with a group, you're going to know how to deal with those people. Certain personality types, certain people with certain types of facial architecture are better at certain kinds of jobs than others. Now that sounds like a no-brainer, but we have to rely on personality. We don't have to rely just on personality. We can look at their face and know what their predilections are. They're more true, they're more accurate than they're not. There's exceptions to every rule, right? But you can't build an influence strategy based on exceptions. You have to build it on what's most common in the vast majority of people, relegate that to unconscious competence so you can focus on the differences when they're important. If you want to learn how to understand sexual and romantic compatibility, different elemental facial types like certain types of activities over others. Someone who's very fiery likes a lot of variety, a lot of adventure, a lot of exploration. Someone who's very metallic, they like it a specific way at a specific time. And if you break that sequence, it's not as good for them. I'm just letting you know that there is a set of profiles that can be used in intimate settings for these people. Okay. You want to learn how to connect with people and manage money and resources better. This program will help you do it, right? Ultimately, if you want to understand yourself better and predict human behavior, face reading is, again, probably the biggest single force multiplier that I've come across. It easily makes you the most fascinating person in the room. And honestly, when you'll become a very good lie detector. You'll be able to tell, you'll get feelings from people based on the energy coming from their face. Is this person a narcissist? Is this person a sociopath? Is this person very sensation seeking, which tends to go along with narcissism and sociopathy, right? Are they very impulse challenged? I mean, in other words, do they have low impulse control? Do they have poor boundaries? Do they violate boundaries easily? There's facial traits that will give you an indication of when that could be true. So in terms of keeping yourself safe, this is probably one of the most powerful tools you can have, okay? It's powerful, it's proven over and over again. Total value in this is $1,997, but we're not gonna just give you this. We've got a whole bunch more stuff. If you act now, we're gonna include these special bonuses for you. Let's start with one of our flagship courses. This course was actually named the #1 NLP program in the world in, I think it was 2022 and 2023. Defense Against the Dark Arts. It's based on our award-winning Killer Influence program. And this program is going to take your face reading skills and teach you how to apply them in the context of speed profiling. In other words, influence and counter manipulation strategies. How do persuasion predators operate? How can you use face reading to diffuse them? And what other tools and tactics can you build into your personal persuasion defense arsenal that keeps you from being put on somebody else's menu? So what you're going to get 16 videos that teach you the universal persuasion protocol, how to think like a master of influencer, how to control your own emotional states so no one else can. And this is a big deal for you guys. The way persuasion predators, the persuasion evildoers of the world get to you, the way they psychically attack you is through your woundings. It's through the holes in your emotional armor that face reading will help you find and fix. But it's not that's just one side of it. You also need to be able to go into or exit any emotional state at will on demand. Defense Against the Dark Arts will give you the exact skill set to train and be able to go to do that. So not only will face reading help you eliminate the woundings that you've had, find the traumas that you need to overcome, Defense Against the Dark Arts will teach you how to go into an undistractable state, how to go into an uninsultable state, how to go into a dominant alpha type state, how to go into a playful state, and how to stop any psychic attack that someone's delivering in seconds just by shifting your physiology and utilizing the mental constructs that we teach you in the first part of the training. Then you'll be using that, you'll be able to gain powerful rapport with just about anyone, anytime, anywhere, and create very deep level transference of your emotional states to theirs. It will prime them to think, feel, and act and behave the way that you want them to. Right? We're going to teach you the most powerful, irresistible hypnotic language patterns that exist so that when you deliver a message, it's received and acted upon in the most powerful way possible, in the most irresistible way possible by the human nervous system. We're going to teach you how to take all that and manage the emotional states of other people so that you can navigate any interaction and come out with your outcome and the things you want and protect whoever needs protection and gain out the win in any situation. We'll teach you how to look at somebody's behavioral code. I apologize for the leaf blower's been going nonstop today. How to hijack somebody's internal behavioral code and use it to either stop them in their tracks, make them go away, or get them to do whatever you want. Finally, we're going to teach you how to tap into the power of somebody's emotional needs and drives and bond their deepest desires to the behaviors you want them to do so that they will literally thank you for the opportunity to do what you want them to do because it gives them the feelings they always wanted to have. That's part of Defense Against the Dark Arts. What you're also going to get is the master keys for how to read anyone instantly, the fundamentals of lie detection on demand, how to spot sociopath, narcissists, and other evil a-holes before they can embed themselves in your life and trash it. We're going to teach you speed profiling secrets for preventing predators from getting their hooks into you in the first place. We're going to teach you about predatory psychology and how to turn the tables on narcissists and other persuasion predators fast. We're going to teach you hypnotic reframe techniques for winning arguments and keeping yourself from being gaslighted, future promised, or any of the other tools that persuasion predators, confidence men, grifters, things of that nature, abusers are likely to use on you. You'll also get access to the 21 conversational red flags that all narcissists and sociopaths use during conversations to avoid blame and to sidestep accountability for their actions. You'll become intimately familiar with how they work. You'll know how to use them. You'll know how to counter them. You'll know how to instantly spot microexpression changes and subtle cues. We started the webinar off with a question about poker. We'll learn about microexpressions and how to spot them. Remember, microexpressions are a challenge for the best people in the world. They take training, okay? And many, many more bonus chapters on psychological tactics and influences. That's part of the bonus. That's a completely free bonus. It's a $1,997 value. Total combined value is $3,994, but we're not done yet because we want you to have, pardon my French, the full Monty, right? We've given you the face reading. We've given you the Defense Against the Dark Arts, which is all the other different ways that you can utilize profiling to protect yourself and to deliver the influence that you need. We're also going to give you a copy of our Identity by Design Hypnotherapy Home Study course. Now, why would I do this? It's because one of the most powerful ways that you can use face reading is in hypnosis. When you demonstrate consistent understanding of a person's life that they didn't tell you, they become hypnotically hypersuggestible. And in the context of hypnotherapy, it literally gives you a roadmap to follow, a way to ask questions that help you unlock the secret emotional traumas and barriers to success and limiting beliefs and phobias and all the other things that a person has been burying. You'll gain the ability to hypnotize anyone, anytime, anywhere, for any reason. You'll be able to remove blocks and limiting beliefs, find and remove the negativity they didn't even know they had. You'll be able to help people clear up issues that just don't seem to go away. You'll be able to change the crappy voices in their head to a voice that inspires them and guides them and loves them and motivates them and reminds them of all the very best things about them. That reminds them that they're always loved, always accepted, always protected, and never, ever alone. Those things change lives. And with the help of face reading, with the help of this particular program, you'll be able to go in and make a profound difference in the lives of everyone you interact with, whether you want to do it as an amateur or whether you want to do it at a professional level. This is a professional level training. I want to gift this to you because I really believe that once you start tapping into the power of face reading, you're going to need tools, fast, effective tools that you can use to clean up what you find, clean up what you let out, and leave that person in a better place. Okay, one of the most frustrating things I went through when I was learning face reading was that it was purely diagnostic. There was almost no therapeutic remedial component in the face reading curriculum. Lillian would sit there and talk to a person about this trauma and that trauma, and you would see it welling up in their eyes. You would see their eyes just shining because they're trying to hold back the tears. You see the lips quivering, and all it did was provoke, but there was no way to resolve it. And I made a decision right then and there that if I'm going to teach face reading, if I'm going to give people the tools to open people up, I got to give them the tools to heal them, to help them clear those things and remove them. Sometimes just talking about it is enough, but sometimes it isn't. Sometimes you need more tools. And that's why I'm doing this. I know from an outsider, so why are you giving me a hypnotherapy program for a face reading package? This is why. Because if you use these skills, you're going to need them, right? And if you are someone who's in the helping profession already, this is a powerful way to add 2 revenue streams to your business. Okay, I want you to make money doing this. I want you to be successful doing this. So I'm going to give this to you. It's a $1,497 value. I'm going to give it to you completely free. So the total combined value of what we've got so far is $5,491. We're also going to give you a more specific training on body language. We call this people reading for fun and profit. This was one of my earliest programs on body language. And it was all about understanding everything below the neck. It's probably a good way to say it. Right? How to understand the body language of attraction, how to detect lies and other deceptive behaviors, how to influence people without words, how to actually move through the world projecting more charm, confidence, and charisma on command. Women, it's going to teach you how to understand men better. Men, it's going to teach you how to understand women better. It's going to teach you the 7 levels of success that are the 7 stages of social status that are linked to dress and how you can use them effectively to create the maximum amount of influence in the shortest amount of time in any operational theater that you're working in. It's going to teach you how to eliminate behaviors that actually weaken your influence, how to close more deals, get more dates, and get more yeses in your life, right? It's, again, everything is complementary to each other. You can see how these things all start to fit together, right? It's a very, very well thought out package, right? It's going to change everything about your life if you apply it. I'm good at what I do. The course is really good, but if you don't actually apply it, you can't actually make a change. So I'm going to encourage you, when you get this, actually go for it. Do the drills, do the skills, go out into the world and play with it. It's a $1,497 value. We're going to give this to you for free. Total combined value on this package is $6,988. So let's look at what we got for you. We got the Secrets of Face Reading Home Study Course, obviously. Speed Profiling, Defense Against the Dark Arts. It's a $1997 value. We're going to give that to you for free. We're going to give you the Identity by Design Hypnotherapy Home Study Course. Again, for obvious reasons, right? We want you to have the tools. If you open up somebody, you got to learn how to fix them, right? I want you to be ready, right? People Reading for Fun and Profit, 2-day intensive is a $1,497 value. It's going to fill in all the gaps for body language applications that you might need, right? You've got total value on this is $6,988, right? That's pretty good, right? So today, I want you to get the best deal humanly possible. What does that look like? Well, you're not going to have to invest $6,988. Nay, nay. What if I gave it to you for half price? Would that be okay? $34.97, would that be good? Nope, we're not going to do that either. What about $14.97? Get all of that for the cost of one course? That's pretty good. But no, we're going to do something even better. For those of you who are ready, you can get it all for one low installment of just $797. All you got to do is click the following link, nlppower.com/face. Or you can, if you want, you can break that $797 up into 3 simple installments of $297 each. All you got to do is click this link right here, nlppower.com/FACE. Click the link, click the link, click the link. As my teacher, David Singer, used to say, click the link, right? So as you can see, it's a really well thought out package. It covers all the bases that you're going to need. It's going to set the stages for even higher levels of learning later on. But I promise you, if you actually take the time to go through these programs and learn them and bug us incessantly on the phone if you have a question, you are going to see massive, massive results in the shortest amount of time possible. Now, FTC says I can't make extraordinary claims, so I'm going to tell you this. The FTC says that results are not typical. In my world, people who use the programs get the results, right? I'll let you decide whether I'm saying what I'm saying to placate the FTC or if it's really true or not, right? Anyway, anybody who's been around Planet David for any length of time, especially if you've been to one of our live events where real crazy stuff happens, you'll know that this is, I'm actually underselling, I'm under describing what these things can and will do for you. Okay. But I am me and you are you, and I can't multiply zeros. So I promise you this, when you get this course and you apply it, if you have questions, call me and I'll answer you. And I will guide you through the rough spots as much as I can. If after 60 days, you're not getting the results, if after on day 59, you still haven't made any progress at all with these skills, you just let me know and I'll give you a full and complete refund. I am your guide. I am your teacher. I'm your friend. I'm your mentor. I'm here to help you, but I can't multiply zeros. So if I promise you this, if you give this everything you have for 60 days, if by the end of 60 days, you're not winning more bigly, as what's the guy who did Dilbert said, winning more bigly, right? If you're not on the fast track to understanding yourself and other people better, if you aren't picking up people's personalities and communicating more effectively, if you're not attracting more success by your standards and your definitions, if you're not on the fast track to manifesting your dreams, if you're not feeling more confident and secure and powerful as a byproduct of this training, I will refund every dime you've invested. And you can keep the programs. It's my way of saying, thanks for giving us a shot, right? But I encourage you, use this program. If it works for you, keep it. I'll show you where to go next. If it's not working for you, we'll refund your money. You have nothing to risk. And you find something that does work, okay? This is a no-brainer, okay? Go for it. Click that link, www.nlppower.com/face, okay? All right, so now one of the things I love to do for people is I like to reward people who take action. I like to reward people who go for it. So if you're one of the first 21 people to grab your course before I log off the webinar today, notice what I said. Notice the screen says March 31st, 2026. Everything I've talked about up to this point is available until March 21st or 31st, 2026. Everything I'm about to talk about is only available for people who click that link before I log off the webinar. So it behooves you to keep my weenie butt on this webinar as long as humanly possible if you're on the fence about whether you want to go for this or not. I would recommend you grab the link right now and go ahead and reserve your spot because you're going to get some amazingly cool new bonuses. First and foremost, you're going to get a 3-month trial membership to the NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring Program. This is a program we put together in October of 2010. We've been running it every single year, month after month after month since 2010. And it's a skill building workshop. You come in at 11 a.m. on the third Sunday of every month. I go around, third Saturday of every month. I go around the room and I say, Joe, what do you want to learn? Paul, what do you want to learn? Simona, what do you want to learn? Linda, what do you want to learn? Mia, what do you want to learn? Moss, what do you want to learn? And I write them all down on the screen and I step back, usually while you're on a break, and I look at all the connecting threads and I say, okay, this is where they all meet. This is the lesson plan we're going to follow. And then we come back, and for the next 4.5 to 5 hours, 6 hours, I drill you on those skills until you can do them in your sleep. You will not get a certification or a certificate from the NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring Program. What you get is power. What you get is control. What you get is the ability to use the skills you paid to learn, the ability to do them anytime, anywhere, under any situation or circumstance. Why? Because you get to roll up your sleeves, and for 6 hours or more sometimes, you have me and a group of uh, birds of a feather, so to speak. People have the same desires, the same interests, training and practicing and giving each other feedback and getting real world ready to use these skills out in the real world. The end of that training period, we send you off into the world to apply your skills. You come back next month, you give us feedback, you tell us what you want to focus on this month, and I write the connecting threads, we create a lesson plan, and we drill and we skill. I would have to say that this program is the longest running NLP practice group of its kind ever. It's been very, very successful, and it's specifically designed to help you bridge the gap from home learning, study courses, trial member, everything you're getting in the package is designed to bridge the gap and give you the opportunity to functionalize on a real world level the skill sets you're investing in. Okay, we are highly invested in your success. We want you to use these. You are our best advertisement. You are our best marketing tool. The more successful you are, the more people you help, starting with you, the more people, the more NLP power makes a difference in the world. And right now, we need you. The world needs you, right? So anyway, that's what the NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring Program is. We've also videotaped every single training that we've ever done. We've archived those videos in a secure location. And as part of your membership, you will get unlimited access to the entire 15-year video archive for as long as you're a member in good standing in the NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring Program. After 3 months, you decide you want to stay, we'll show you how to extend your membership. Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt. If at the end of 3 months you got what you needed, you're ready to go make the world your oyster, we'll bid you good luck and wait to hear your successes in the email or on a video testimonial or something like that, right? This is yours for free. Try it for 90 days. If you want to keep it, we'll show you how to keep it. If you want to move on afterwards, we'll show you how to do that. But it will take you from access to the information to ownership of it. And once you own it, no one in the world can take it away from you. And that's the big piece. You want to own these skills, not just have access to them, right? This is how you do it. We're going to give it to you for free if you want the next 21 people to click that link right now. Total value on this combined value is $8,985, but we're not done yet. We got a couple really cool bonuses that I think are going to really help you move forward in life. Second is going to be face reading level 2. Face reading level 1 was all about what we call above the mask. This was a way, because remember that when I started teaching this, COVID was big, and I didn't know this was going to happen at the time, but everything I created in face reading level 1 could be seen above the mask or outside of the mask. Face reading level 2 is below the mask. So I have the nose, the cheeks, the chin, the mouth shape, all those things are included in face reading level 2. And it's like yin and yang to the entire face reading curriculum. And I don't think, I could be wrong, but last I looked, we hadn't released face reading level 2 to the general public. So I think right now, and again, Mia, correct me if I'm wrong, the only place you can actually get face reading level 2 is through the webinar. It's a $1,997 value. We're going to give this to you absolutely free. Okay? Absolutely free. Total combined value is $10,982. And finally, for those of you who actually would like to have the in-person experience, for those of you who would actually like to work with me personally, we're going to offer you a free VIP super ticket to our next advanced face reading skills for fun and profit workshop. This is going to be a class that's going to cover psychopathy, sexuality, charisma, lie detection, emotions, and compatibility. It will start with the basic face reading fundamentals, the emotional map, the decision making. You'll start to understand the differences between trauma constitution work or trauma work, personality traits, which is what we call the chi level. And then of course, what we're dealing here is what we call Shen, which is all about the mind and the emotions and mental illness, lie detection, things of that nature. So this is a perfect add-on. It's a perfect connector to all the different aspects of your face reading webinar package. It's a $2,750 value. It's a 3-day certification boot camp. It'll be April 12th or 10th through the 12th online via Zoom. If people want to attend in person, let Moss or Mia know. And if we have enough people that actually want to do it in person, we will find a facility. But as of right now, this is going to be on online training only, but it will be live. It will be in real time. Okay. It's a $2,750 value. You're going to learn how to read anyone, anytime, anywhere, instantly. You're going to learn how to predict human behavior, gain rapport, speed read their emotions, and influence people more easily than you ever thought possible. You learn how to detect lies, hidden traumas, and so much more. So it's an amazingly cool class. I'm excited to teach it. I have not taught this level of face reading. This is kind of advanced, but again, you don't. My teacher didn't require prerequisites for any of her classes. And so I'm not going to either in this case, right? So if you want to come to this class, I don't care if you can't even spell face reading. Come on in. We will get you through it, this program in the shortest amount. Everything starts with fundamentals, and then we build into the specific topics that we're going to talk about. If you've been a long time face reader, you're going to hear stuff you've never heard before. You're going to see stuff you've never heard before. And I noticed there was some talk in the chat. If you saw anything, if you've been on one of our face reading webinars in the past, and you have some of these courses, we will let you swap things out. All you have to do is let Mia or Moss know that you have some of these courses already, and we will let you substitute any course of equal or lesser value, and you can have a customized package. We don't want you spending good money on courses you've already got to get other courses you don't have. We want you to be able to get everything that you really want. And so just let us know, and we'll go from there. Now, I do have one announcement to make, and this is going to come as a surprise. By the way, total value on this is $13,732. And it's going to include the Secrets of Face Reading Home Study course, the Defense Against the Dark Arts Home Study course, the Real World Hypnosis Identity by Design Hypnotherapy Home Study course, Face Reading for Fun and Profit Level 1, or People Reading for Fun and Profit, I'm sorry, NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring Trial, the Face Reading for Fun and Profit Level 2 Home Study course, Face Reading, Love, Lies, and Leadership is actually the course we're set for April 10th through the 12th on Zoom. Total value on this is $13,732. All you got to do is click that link in your chat right there, nlppower.com/face, or you can break that up into 3 easy installments of just $297 each, nlppower.com/face. And I got to do something that is it's kind of hard for me right now. I know this is kind of weird, but maybe not the best place to do this, but I'm going to go ahead. When you call and you talk to Moss, I would like you guys very much to wish him good luck. Moss has been my assistant. He's been volunteering his services in Planet David as my administrative assistant and doing a mentorship with me, which have kind of sort of officially ended November-ish. And Moss has reached his graduation moment, and Moss will be moving on to chart his own course and captain his own ship. And so this will be Moss's last webinar with us. And so when you call or send Moss an email, I want you all to wish him the very best of luck. He is now going to be certified as a hypnosis instructor, and he'll be doing his own trainings and seeing clients and things of that nature. He's already seeing clients. He has his own business. But I just wanted to let everybody know that I'm very proud of the work Moss has been able to do and how he's helped NLP Power. And we wish him all the very best in his endeavors. So I just wanted to kind of make this official, make it public. He'll be there. He'll be with us for a couple more days, but don't be surprised if somebody else is answering your emails or picking up your phone or something like that. Okay. Anyway, back to our regularly scheduled program. If you've had some of these, now, one of the nice things about the VIP ticket is if for some reason you can't make the training on April 10th, well, just let us know and we will happily move you to another training. Okay. If you want to gift that training to somebody else, then just pick up the phone, let Mia or Moss know, probably Mia for a while, right? Or me. And we'll move you to another training. If something comes up at the last minute where your schedule's suddenly free and you can come to the training, but for some reason it's sold out, which happens actually, just let us know. We'll make a seat for you, right? You have the ticket until you choose to use it. okay? Because we want you in class. We want you to learn. I love teaching this stuff. It has changed every aspect of my life, and I know what it can do for you. I truly do. And I want you to click those links. I want you to get your packages, and I want to guide you through this journey of empowerment and transformation. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to post those links again for you. It's nlppower.com/face. If you have any questions, please reach out to Mia. Moss should still be answering the phone unless he's vacated early, which is probably not the case. In any event, we're going to move into, I'm going to give you guys like a 7-minute potty break, a question break. You can click your links. You can talk to the people on the customer service side. And so Liz is saying, I'm interested in Bankston method. Which of your programs include it? So Liz, I'm going to have to be very explicit. Bill Bankston only certified like 1 or 2 people to ever teach the Bankston or certify people in the Bankston method. I have adapted things from his method, modified them, and integrated them into my trainings, right? So I'm very much a huge fan of Dr. Bankston. God rest his soul. But I want to be very clear that I do not certify people in the Bankston system. That being said, I do use his system as an engine of transformation in a lot of my programs, right? And so if you want to learn that, the best places for you to go would be hidden laws of attraction, vibrational influence, vibrational healing, and or hypnotic laws of attraction. Now, we do have a 5-day vibrational influence advanced energy mastery training coming up April 28th through May 2nd. And we will absolutely be teaching our version of image cycling and all the different nuances that we've built. We've modified what we learned from Bill to make it even more powerful. So if you want to learn if you want to learn it live and in person from me, that's the best place to go. If you can't travel, then any of the programs I've named, vibrational influence, vibrational healing, hidden laws of attraction, hypnotic laws of attraction, all of those will give you access. And I think I haven't released that program yet, so it won't matter. Those programs are the ones where we teach our version of image cycling. Okay, so hopefully that helps. So I'm going to give you guys about an 8-minute potty break. When we come back, we're going to pick up with part 3. We're going to be talking about the emotional map of the face, and we'll drill down on some of the specific face reading questions or characteristics that you want to know more about. Okay, I'll see you in a few minutes. All right, I'm back early. So if people have questions, let's say here. Amelia is asking, is there a facial trait connected to astral travel? And do you have any tips, books, or programs? Um, I get a little bit more woo than I was planning on in this webinar, but um, anything related to psychic abilities is going to be related to this area of the face. It's going to be the third eye. And if the third eye is open, then the propensity for astral projection, clairvoyance, things of that nature is a little bit more pronounced. But there's no real facial trait that indicates a high degree of psychic ability. Certainly, there are spiritual aspects of things that we can look at in the face. But once again, when we're talking about the Shen, which is the psycho-emotional heart-mind aspect of a human being, we're not always talking necessarily directly about psychic stuff. And that's, like I said, we have classes where we do extended neurosensory abilities and stuff like that. That's not really the purview here. What you will see many times is that when people are going through intensely spiritual experiences, though, especially moments of what we call the long, dark nights of the soul, and they come out spiritually transformed in some way, many times what you will see is a line that kind of moves diagonally from the third eye area up. And these are the only lines I've seen that based on my teachings that actually move that way. We call these transformation lines. And they tend to indicate somebody who's gone through some intense psycho-spiritual experience, and they've emerged from the other side of that with a profoundly different view of the world and themselves in it, right? There's another marking that a lot of high-level meditators tend to manifest, and Lillian called them Buddha wings. And what they look like are these little curvy or wavy lines that come up from the third eye area. And those are usually seen in intensely spiritual people, high-level meditators, things of that nature. Now, on the topic of altered states of consciousness, one of the things you want to look at many times is the temples. If you see temples, you want to look at, do the temples seem very light and bright to you, or do they seem very dark? The temples indicate a person's affinity for altered states of consciousness. So if there's a brightness to the temples, that usually indicates somebody who's a high-level meditator, spiritual person, someone doing shamanics, things of that nature. If the coloring is dark, they tend to look for altered states through substances, alcohol, drugs, opioids, all the different types of things people do to get high or to escape from their feelings and things of that nature. And so that's one of the things that we can look for in terms of someone's proclivity towards altered state work, right? I saw a question. Rob is asking, is there some general correspondence of those facial zones with the typical eye axis and cues? Not really. Not really, because you have to remember that we're looking at when the eyes are moving, it's because they're accessing different cortexes of the brain. They're literal representations of like when we're watching something outside and our eyes are moving around, we're literally doing the same thing to what we're seeing on the inside of our brain. So there isn't a whole lot of correlation between eye accessing cues and facial traits. However, what you will see in terms of the eyes and consciousness is that, going back to one of the things I led with, is people who hold their eyes very open or have very large eyes, they tend to let more information in and more light comes out. So one of the things we'll talk about in the virtual training in April is something called Shen, or a person's spirit or vital force. And I have to make a distinction between Qi, which is another form of vital force, and then Jing, which is a denser form of vital force. Anytime you hear me use the word Jing, I'm talking about the physical, material, substance aspect of the body. When I'm talking about the Qi, I'm talking about almost like the bioelectricity or the motive force of the body. So think of the Jing level like the structural components that make up the body, think of the qi as the functional component or the functional activity of the body. And then the spirit is something a little bit more subtler, and it's much more of a guiding force. It's more of a blueprint that tells the energy where to function and what structure to build, right? It's kind of the foreman that guides everything. And that's where your deeper level patterns are, your fears, your phobias, your belief systems, your positive beliefs, your limiting beliefs. They're all at the Shen level. They're the non-local part of you. They manifest physically in the body. So where we can see Shen and mental activity is still in the eyes. But the Chinese didn't map out eye accessing patterns. That was a much, much later innovation, I guess. Some people would say it's an innovation. Some people would say it's bullshit, right? And you really have to decide for yourself. I think there are ways that it works really, really well and ways that it's a little bit more iffy. But the brightness of the eye, when you look at somebody, how much energy, how much light can you see coming from the eyes? If you've ever seen a baby, when she opens her eyes and she smiles, that beautiful glowing radiance that you see coming from her, that's the Shen, right? And when it's bright and it's clear, there's a huge amount of openness. The more trauma a person goes through, the more guarded, the more defensive they are, the more that Shen tends to get muddy. The light behind the eyes gets very muddy. It's very confused. And you see this, if you ever heard the term the 1,000-yard stare or the 1,000-mile stare, where they're just kind of, right? That's muddy Shen. That's somebody who's got their internal processes are not smooth. They're not regulated. And so that'll come out in a muddy kind of an energy from behind the eyes. It'll also be seen below the skin. The skin will have less vitality to it, right? Whereas somebody who's very vibrant, very healthy, very happy, very joyous, you'll feel the light and the vitality coming out from underneath the skin. Okay. Denise is asking, are there any obvious changes in facial characteristics that could be predictive of serious health conditions? Yes, tons. In fact, that's really what you're learning. I opened this loop at the beginning of the webinar. I should probably close it. There's a lot of people out there teaching face reading, right? You got Joey Yap, you got Eric Standoff, you got Mac Fulfer, you've got a bunch of people who are from Lillian's lineage teaching. And they all bring their own unique perspective to the work. But some systems of face reading are much more metaphysical oriented than practical oriented. They all intend to be practical, but they're just certain concepts that they talk about that we can't verify it, we can't validate it, and we don't see how it relates directly to our very linear nuts and bolts ways. Doesn't mean they don't work, but we don't make that immediate connections to things. And the more I studied with these other people, and they're all brilliant in their own way, but the more I studied from Lillian, the more I studied these other people, the more I grew to really appreciate everything that Lillian was teaching, but not just what she was teaching, how she was teaching it. Because Lillian came from, this is what it looks like in Chinese medicine. This is what liver fire looks like. These are the emotions connected to the liver. These are the areas of the face where you can look for liver dysfunction, whether it's emotional or organic, right? And so, and that's how, and here are the extensions of those liver patterns into behavior, into personality and temperament. And that's where she came from. So Lillian gave us, in my opinion, a much better view of Chinese psychology through face reading, because she was fascinated by Western psychology as well, than a lot of the other systems do, because Joey Yap is very metaphysical, he's very feng shui oriented, and it's brilliant stuff. It's just not as directly applicable to what we do. We need to be able to look at somebody and get a personality profile created in them in 90 seconds. Right? But not only are each of these parts of the body psycho-emotional and predictive in terms of personality and temperament, they're also indicative of the health of the organs they pertain to. So for those of you who want to study that, I'm going to do some whole courses on medical energetics, and you learn to diagnose people through the face. So when we look at the eyes, for example, we're looking at the health of the liver, right? The liver, and especially in the forehead area, the eyes, the sclera of the eyes, that all pertains to your liver, right? So if I have liver fire, for example, right, the eyes may be yellow or they may be very dark, deep red. If I have malfunctioning liver or bilirubin issues, gallbladder issues, then you'll see the eyes become very yellow and jaundiced. You may see a yellowing of the skin as well, right? The heart pertains to the tip of the nose and the tip of the tongue, right? So if somebody's having heart issues, I can look at their nose, specifically the tip, and further in this way, and I can gauge the strength and the health of their heart. If they're having lung issues, the lungs cover this area of the face. So if I have markings, and you'll see these, by the way, when we get to the emotional map, anything that comes through here is going to be affecting or related to lung energy, right? It could be grief, it could be sorrow, it could be sadness, it could be self-loathing or hatred or disappointment. It could also be COPD. It could also be asthma. It can also be allergies. One manifests the other. So a strong enough emotional toxin can create a physiological malfunction, but a physiological malfunction can also create an emotional expression. It's a feedback loop. The Chinese the Asians, I shouldn't say, didn't separate the functions and the emotions from the organ. It was the same system, and so you could diagnose them the same way. So it'll be different colors in different, and I can show you. I'll show you a chart later that kind of shows you what that looks like. The ears, usually kidney stuff, right? But I can also diagnose the entire body from inside the ear, right? Usually the neck or the neck and spine are in the bridge of the nose. Spleen is under the eyes, right? So and around the mouth. Large intestines are in the lips, right? So yes, the short answer is yes. I can look at your face and I can read your organs, right? And because Chinese medicine tends to look at long range signs much more so than acute signs, you tend to see those signs in the facial architecture long before they would become clinically pathological from a Western diagnostic test. So this is one of the reasons why Chinese medicine and derivatives of it tend to be very, very good for chronic illness and illness prevention. Okay. Hopefully that helps. Okay. All right, so let's look at emotions, shall we? Great. When I first got into one of the things, as you can see, I have a very strong, I love knowledge, but my pragmatic zone is almost as compulsive. Where is my mouse? I can't find my mouse here. There we go. My mouse is blending in with my, what the heck? Hold on a second. I'm going to have to do something a little bit different here. There we go. Well, I apologize for this because my mouse has just decided to get all wonky on me and I can't actually get to, there we go. I hope. There we go. All right. I have no idea why it was doing that. All right. All right. Can you see that okay? All right. So I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. Let me switch to my other system in a minute, just because. All right. I'm going to go up. All right, so the first line we want to look at is in the upper right-hand corner here. That's not going to let me do it. All right. And it's skepticism. Skepticism starts as a line directly across the eye. Starts about mid-eyebrow, works laterally. Okay. Directly below that, at the outer canthus of the eye, and the outer canthus is the corner of the eye. I'm going to have to change the color of this cursor, but I don't know how to do it. You know what? Give me just 1 minute here, because clearly the universe is just messing with me. Oh, now it's working. All right. So skepticism starts as a line at about the mid-level of the eyebrow. And now one of the things I want to share with you is when you're going to talk to people about these traits, it's always better to describe the action of the trait than to just use the label. So if I see this marking on somebody, I'm in a context where I'm going to do a face reading or something related to face reading, I'm not going to look at them and say, oh, you're a very skeptical person, because that will trigger defensiveness. What Lillian liked to do, and I recommend you guys play with this, is she would always compliment the feature, and she would do a variation of a quotes pattern or IU shift. She would say something like, oh, I noticed you have this really, really wonderful line right above your eyebrow. You know, many people who have this line right above their eyebrow, they tend to view the world as a show me kind of a place. They're a little bit more on the skeptical side. They're not closed-minded. They just want to see the proof of things before they just accept it at face value. Would that be true for you? Right? And the person will almost always find a way to agree. Right? Whereas if you just said, you're a skeptical mofo, they're probably going to get a little bit more defensive. Remember, your job when you're doing face reading is to open people up so they will let you in and do what you want them to do. So you never want to be confrontational. You never want to use this as a weapon. And I'm going to tell you up front that face reading as a tool of psychological self-defense is extraordinarily powerful, and it can be dangerous if it's used unkindly. So one of the other lines I was telling you about starts at the outer canthus of the eye here, and it travels up this way. And this is a joy line, right? Now, we're going to take this joy. You'll see this in people who are very happy, have had a lot of joy in their life. But one of the things I want you to be aware of, and to talk about this next trait, we're going to kind of bebop to the other side of the face here. See how these lines start at the outer canthi and they travel past the eyebrow? We call these mania lines. And so, believe it or not, again, at the risk of maybe getting canceled, we have a person in the White House who has these lines. People with this particular marking tend to exhibit strong manic tendencies. They tend to be they don't sleep a lot, and when they're awake, they're very aggressive, very hyper, very creative, and then they crash. So these people are usually kind of borderline. They're a little bit more I don't want to say they're psychopathic, but they're more polar. It can be bipolar. They can be manic depressive. It's an extreme mania as opposed to a happy joy thing, right? So one of the things you want to look for when you're dealing with people and they have joy lines, do these joy lines extend? Do they extend beyond the eyebrow? And then choose your relationship with them accordingly. Okay. Contra to that, we may have see somebody that has lines that start at the outer canthus and they trail down. Now you notice that these lines pass through the what? The lung area that I was talking about, right? And this is one of the things you're going to see, that when we start dealing with loss, we have basically 3 or 4 different degrees of loss that we can experience. We have sadness, which is usually a much shorter line, usually much more immediate. And depending on how we deal with that sadness will depend on how long that line remains. But if we don't deal with it effectively, if we put ourselves into denial or apathy, or we distract ourselves with work, but we never deal with the repressed emotion, it will eventually become sorrow. And sorrow is sadness combined with an inability to let go. And so you'll see this line get longer and deeper. If it goes on for too long, it becomes grief. And when you start hitting the grief level, this is where you can start to see a lot of physiological manifestations for repressed emotion. I started my clinical practice in 2005, and my specialty rapidly became physiological illness caused by repressed emotion. And one of the fastest, deepest places you will see this manifest is in the lung area. So you have 3 degrees of sadness, each one becoming much more chronic and much more repressed and much more physically debilitating over time. There's another form of loss that you can see on the face. We call this a lost love line. Now, I've seen 2 versions of lost love. We're going to give you the first one, and that runs this way. I've also seen one that runs like this. It runs across and then down the eye. Okay. Now, a lost love line is related to, at some point in this person's life, they were engaged or connected to something that they believed was a part of their reason for being. In Chinese medicine, and specifically in the Taoist traditions and things of that nature, we have this concept called Ming. Ming means destiny or golden path. And one of the things the Taoists like to say is that every human being who takes on a body has a golden path, and that golden path leads them back to their original face. What is their original face? Well, technically, the original face is the being that you were, the consciousness that you were before you took on this body. And the Chinese love to say that when you're born, you're as close as you'll ever be to your original face. And by the time you hit your 50s, you've got the face you earned. Okay? So the idea of Ming, or golden path, is about doing all the things that feed your soul, feed your spirit, that light you up like a Christmas tree, that are in alignment with your spiritual mission in this life. Okay? Now, the things that are in alignment with your spiritual mission in this life may surprise you. But one of the ways that you can tell that this is something that is part of your reason for being here is if you can't not do it. Okay? Let's say in the example that I often use here is, like, let's say when you were a little boy or a little girl, right? You fell in love with horses, and everything you did was about horses. You had pictures of horses, you rode horses, you took care of a horse. When you weren't riding a horse, you were thinking about riding a horse, and riding a horse for you was the most sublime, heart-opening, cosmic experience you could conceive of. Okay? That's how you know something is in alignment with your golden path. When you do it, and it just feels like, this is me, this is who I am, this is what I was meant to do. When you have those moments, those are things that we need to collect and get back into your life in some way. But let's say, for whatever reason, whether you believe in karma, whether you believe in bad luck, whether you believe in asshole parents, right? Life situation, something comes along. Let's go back to our horse analogy. Something comes along and you can no longer ride, or do things with horses. You have to cut it out of your life. Maybe an injury, maybe you got into a relationship and the person that you got into this relationship with basically put you in a position where you had to make a choice. You chose them over that because that was the noble thing to do, right? When you lose that piece of you, it will manifest sometimes as a mark at the inner canthus of the eye, and it will either travel directly down towards the grief area in the lung, or it will track across the eye and then down. And that's what I was illustrating with the image. So I've seen grief lines or lost love lines manifesting two different ways, but they both track through the lung area. So they both deal with loss. Okay. So if you get a client or you're dealing with a patient or a team member and you see these lines, you know, somehow, some way they suffered a significant loss of something that was truly important to them. Right. And they haven't processed it. They haven't processed it. And if we're doing golden path work, we need to find a way to restore that to them in some capacity. We need to recapture that life force that was lost when they lost that activity. Now, lost loves do not have to be a person. They can be. But more often than not, it's an activity or a talent or a skill that's no longer being expressed or utilized. And that loss is deeply felt as an identity loss. Okay. Any questions about the four loss lines? Okay. All right. Let me go ahead and just give you guys a brief reminder. The Defense Against the Dark Art package goes away when I log off the webinar. So once again, you're going to get the Secrets of Face Reading Core Home Study Course. You're going to get the Defense Against the Dark Art Study Course. You're going to get Identity by Design, People Reading for Fun and Profit, the NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring Trial Archive, Face Reading for Fun and Profit Level 2, and Face Reading Love, Lies, and Leadership. That's the advanced face reading Shen training that we're doing April 10th, 11th, and 12th online via Zoom. Total package value is $13,732. You can get it all for one low installment of just $797 or 3 easy installments of $297 each. Any typos you see are directly mine, so please forgive me. Let's see, Melody's asking, I have a line running horizontally directly beneath each of my eyes, like above where you would see dark circles. What would that mean? So is it a single line? Is it a puffy area? I'm not sure what we're talking about. My guess is if it's running this way, like from the inner canthi to the outer canthi, you're probably looking at some kind of sadness or lost love. If it's puffy, it could be unshed tears, or it can be that your spleen is a little bit too overworked and your fluid metabolism isn't working quite as well as you would like. I can't diagnose. I can only tell you what some of the books would say if you were reading them. He says, I have 2 not connected lines across the bridge of my nose. Okay, so what you're talking about, Melody says, I suspect it's all 3. Thanks. It's entirely possible. Again, when you start, again, one of the drawbacks, I guess, there, if you could say it, about being a face reader, especially if you've been doing it any length of time, you can't turn it off. Right. I mean, people laugh sometimes when I start teaching like Defense Against the Dark Arts, and I show them face reading, and I show them profiling, like behavioral profiling, like I get from Chase, and they start to realize all the things NLP and all the things I see when I'm talking to them, and they get very self-conscious. Right. I see way more than I say, and I say almost nothing unless I'm specifically asked, and even then I'm a bit reticent. But you'll become this way too. You will see the world through a very different set of eyes, and secrets will be revealed to you. So that's a very powerful ability to have. use it appropriately. So is it across the, so when you got lines across the bridge of the nose, specifically here, it's usually indicative of either blood sugar issues, neck problems. If you have lines across the bridge of the nose and part of your eyebrow is kind of faded, it's only about half, then you might want to go check your doctor, have your doctor check for thyroid issues. Okay. So Denise is asking, how does loss of life or physical abilities due to aging show up? Okay, that's a very vague question, Denise. I'm not sure what you're asking me. Let's see here. Let me go back to my picture. Okay. So we've covered the losses, right? And again, if we were to look at the organs, this is what we're seeing. So I can look at your face and I can actually diagnose your organs from a Chinese medical perspective. But again, that's a whole different level of diagnostics. And those are things that I'm reserving primarily for my medical energetics students. We're doing the Chinese energetic, modern integrative medical energetics that I'm teaching. We're focused mostly on emotional stuff right now. So questions about skepticism, joy, sadness, sorrow, grief, or lost loves? So regrets due to old age will often manifest once again in the lung area, but they can also manifest here. And since we're in that area now, let me go ahead and explain that to you. Regrets are often the roots of disappointment and over nurturing. So what do I mean by that? When we look at these lines here, these are what we call over nurturing lines. These are lines that people get very often when they grow up in an environment where they're taught, they're socialized to believe that if you give to people, the universe will give back to you in kind. And they play their entire life by these rules, and they spend all their energy and all their time giving to other people, taking care of other people, nurturing other people, kissing other people's boo-boos, waiting for the universe or other people to kiss their boo-boos in return the same way, and they never get it. It never happens. And for some mysterious reason, people who have accepted this rule, they tend to lack flexibility. They keep doing it over and over and over again, even though they see everyone around them not playing by those rules and getting further ahead in life. So eventually what happens, they start to develop these lines above the lip. You'll also see this in smokers, and that makes perfect sense because smoking is a form of self-nurturing, right? They're not getting the nurturing they want from the people in their lives, so they have to do it. They have to literally nurture themselves as well as everybody else. And so the person is literally giving away all their energy, all their vitality, all their time to move other people's lives forward. Now, what happens in that moment or over the course of years is that over nurturing turns into disappointment. Disappointment can be seen by a wrinkle that trends from the corner of the mouth downward. Now, this should not be confused with what we call a downturned mouth, which you'll learn in face reading. Okay, they're two different traits, although on the surface they might seem somewhat similar. But when you've got someone who's got very pronounced wrinkles at the corner of their mouth trending downward, this is someone who's endured a long history of being disappointed, of people making promises or them making promises to themselves and then failing to keep them. So many times what you'll see is people start off by over nurturing because those are the rules they were taught. And then they constantly see that people are not reciprocating and they become chronically disappointed. And then that disappointment becomes bitterness, right? They become disillusioned, they become bitter, they become resentful. They regret the investments they made in people because those investments never paid off. Now, each of these is a single trait, okay? However, when you combine over nurturing with disappointment, with bitterness, and it goes on long enough, the body starts looking for an exit strategy. And that exit strategy will almost always, that exit strategy will almost always manifest as some form of chronic illness. Usually some form of cancer, but it can also be IBS, it can be Crohn's, it could be MS, not as much. Parkinson's is usually more fear-based, based on my teachings. So I'm gonna go with the usually some form of cancer. Now I'm not saying that if you have these lines that you're going to get cancer. What I am saying is that you have all three of these lines, there's a shit ton of stuff you're holding on to, you're not expressing, you're repressing, and anything you repress putrefies in the body, it becomes toxic, and it manifests physiological illness. Okay? Because of the area where these lines appear, we're looking at bowel issues mostly. Large intestine, small intestine, stomach, sometimes pancreas or gallbladder, but mostly spleen and stomach. Alzheimer's, I'm not really sure. One of the things you'll see in Alzheimer's people is a very muddy Shen. When they have an episode, you'll see their Shen get very, very confused and very muddy. It'll be darker. In terms of the brain itself, in Chinese medicine, the brain is known as the sea of marrow. So I would probably look at their ears. I would look at inflammation in the water areas of the body. So the water area, just to show you guys really quick from the charts perspective. Hold on a second, let me find the chart. So because we're dealing with something to do with the brain, and the brain is related to the water element. So any place up in here, we might see something. We could see something in the ears. You usually won't see anything related to, in my opinion, I could be wrong. You usually won't see anything in Alzheimer's related directly to the chin, but you will see fear. And a lot of times what happens in Alzheimer's patients is there's a psychological desire to leave, but a fear of actually like terminating themselves. And so they escape into the past. Okay. So these are the areas, if I were going to really be, especially in this area here, if I were going to be looking for a physiological indicator, these are from a face reading perspective, these are the areas I would look at. I might also look here because of the spine, but because we know water, the brain is associated with the water element, then I would probably look in these areas to see. But I would look for some kind of inflammation. Debbie says, I was going to say what a, okay, is that a question or a statement?
A downturned mouth usually indicates somebody who is a little bit more of a pessimist. And so they see the world usually in a more half empty kind of a place. Now, that being said, that often makes them quite the good Samaritan. So people with a downturned mouth, in other words, the corners of the mouth turned down, right? These people see the glass half empty kind of world. They're often quite taken by sob stories. So they're often quite kind. They'll often go out of their way to help somebody who they sense is suffering, even if they're not as bad off as they might appear. They're often suckers for a good sob story. Okay, so but they're not people who are like sometimes the most jovial people. Alan says the special kind. Yes, we are the special kind of stupid, right? And for those who've been to my energy healing classes or my hypnotherapy classes, you know what that statement means, right? So that's what we've got in terms of loss. We've also talked about, so this is over nurturing. If you've got these lines, here's the fix. You got to take care of you first. You've got to pamper yourself to the point where you feel guilty about it, and then you got to keep going. Okay? You've got to stop having expectations of everyone around you, right? And ultimately, you got to learn to let go of stuff, right? If you can do those three things, then you can reverse these lines, right? And be a much healthier, happier version of yourself, right? The tools and identity by design, which is part of the package that you're getting, will help you to do that in the fastest way humanly possible, which is why I included it in the course. Okay, so let me go ahead and jump out of the chart really quickly, and I'm going to go ahead and lower my camera just a little bit so I'm not there. So Denise is asking, what is auditory intuition? So auditory intuition can be seen by little lines right in front of the ear itself. They look like little gills. Then auditory intuition actually starts as a form of auditory hypervigilance. People who develop these lines often grew up in an environment that was not safe, or from their perspective, it wasn't safe. And they had to pay very, very close attention to how things were said, what was said, the way it was said, and tonality becomes a very, very powerful profiling tool. Now, it starts as a way of protecting yourself in an unsafe environment. Later on, if you survive that environment, you get out into the world, it often turns into something else. It becomes a superpower. You become really good at lie detection. You become really good at subtext and understanding the things that people are saying without actually saying them, right? And so it becomes a very intuitive way to extract subtext in different situations and circumstances. I have them in spades. Like it looks like I breathe through my ears because I grew up in a very verbally unsafe environment. I was constantly, people were constantly exploding for no reason, and I developed the ability to explode for no reason too. But I also developed this auditory hypervigilance that has allowed me to become very effective as a therapist, right? Very effective as an undercover policeman, or a retail, I should say, and in many different forms of human communication, this is a very powerful tool. However, because of where it's located, it's on what we call the triple warmer meridian. People with this particular marking are often prone to dehydration, and so they drink a lot. And when you drink a lot, you pee a lot, right? And so what happens many times is the person, they don't have really great water metabolism, and so they drink and they drink and they drink, and they go to the bathroom a lot, and they urinate out a lot of electrolytes and trace minerals, and they don't replace those. And so what happens is if your electrolytes run low or they're out of balance, then you start getting irregular heartbeats, palpitations, tachycardia. Many people think that they're having a panic attack, when in actuality, what they're experiencing is an electrolyte imbalance. And so many people who have these markings often think they're prone to panic attacks because they have irregular heartbeats or fibrillations or stuff like that. Whereas if they just started supplementing with magnesium and other electrolytes, a lot of that stuff would start to go away and they'd be much more calm, right? So once again, you see how the psycho-emotional, the energetic, and the physiological all kind of overlap in a single trait. And that's the beauty of the system, is it's holographic. You can read whatever you want at whatever level of the system you have the ability to perceive, right? So hopefully that's useful for you guys. Let's see, what other questions do we have here, if any? All right. I'm going to do a couple more traits. I'll take some more questions, and then I will turn you guys loose to make the world your oyster. Is this helpful? Is this useful so far, folks? Okay. So we talked about auditory intuition. So that's this marking right here. Another thing we want to look at when we look at somebody is the chin. Now, Chase calls this the chin boss, and it's this area right here, and there's a box here. And sometimes it's triangular, sometimes it's rectangular, sometimes it's circular. Each of those shapes have different meanings to them, which again, we won't have time to cover here, but we cover them pretty fully in face reading level 2, which is part of your training package. But one of the things that the chin can tell us is how willful we are, but also how much fear we're repressing. Now, the diagram that you see here, when you look at the diagram, right, you see what look like little lines. My experience is that fear on the chin does not look like lines. It looks more like, let me make this a little bigger for you guys. It looks more like orange peels. If you've ever seen an orange peel, the texture of the skin takes on this kind of dimpled, dappled kind of texture, right? And I've seen this in people who have a lot of fear. And as Chase pointed out, you can also see it with people who have a lot of shame. Now, what's interesting about shame many times is that there's still fear involved, but it's fear of exposure, fear of somebody finding out what you've done that you're ashamed of. So if you see somebody and they're not making or going out of their way to exaggerate their face, right? You're looking at somebody who's got a lot of repressed fear and or shame in this area, right? Now, does that mean you should say something? No, just because you see it doesn't mean you should say it, right? But clinically, therapeutically, if you see these markings, then you have a pretty good idea that as you're going through your clearing work, these things are probably going to come up. If somebody comes to you for a face reading, that's the perfect opportunity to open this up. But if you're going to open it up, you better have the tools to help these people navigate through it. One of my biggest pet peeves with, and I love my teacher to death. One of my biggest pet peeves was like when she opened something up, more often than not, she would have to refer them to an external therapist because she didn't have the tools or the scope of practice to work on the things she was unpacking. So I try to amend that by giving you the tools so that when people start opening up to you, and they will, right, you have the ability to navigate that and help them to clear it once and for all, right? So this is a pretty important place to look. If you have, and I'll show you another map that again relates to chins, but is more functional if you're going to deal with people outside of a therapeutic or clinical context. Nope. Top, bottom, age markings, ear maps, face. Here we go. So when we look at a person from the side, let me close this. We look at a person from the side. This is an average face. You can see how the curve, it's not super linear, but it's close, right? This is someone who's pretty balanced in their ability to make a decision and take action. But there's different facial profiles. If you look at this person here, the same straight line, you've got a much more pronounced angle, right? This is someone who makes decisions very fast. They make fast decisions and they take action quickly. Contrast that with someone who has a very flat forehead, but their chin juts out a little bit. This is someone who will make decisions fast, but is slow to act. Okay, so if you've got someone with this kind of a profile, they may agree with you right away, but they may take their time getting around to actually doing something. Okay, when you've got somebody who has this kind of a profile, now you've got somebody who is a little bit slower to take an action, but once they make the decision, they'll act on it pretty quick, right? Here's somebody again who's very willful. These people, if they decide they don't want to do something, they're simply not going to do it. So you'll notice that the chin actually juts out a bit further from the face than our friend back here, right? So the chin, and especially the thrusting of the chin, is a measurement of reactance and or willness. This person, if they decide to do something, you're not going to stop them. By the same token, if they decide they're not going to do something, you're not going to start them, right? They're very, very stubborn in that very watery, willful way, okay? So if you take that idea and you cross-reference it with what? Your three zones. Now you not only know how they make decisions, you know how they're going to implement a decision once they make it. So you have to look at them from the profile, if that makes sense. Okay. Let me jump out of this. All right, what questions do you have? Denise says she loves it. Deborah says super helpful. Let me see how my YouTubers are doing. So Jules says my grandma has Parkinson's. Fear makes sense. 440 Breaker says, are there any lines that reference a subject suggestibility level? I would look at the size and shape of the eyes. Do they have a weak chin? Right. Generally speaking, the bigger the eyes, the more open a person is. There's many ways to accelerate suggestibility. So yeah. Kinga says, thank you, David. Marlene says, how can we have access to the replay of this teaching? Well, Marlene, I'm glad you asked. Generally speaking, when I log off, YouTube will make it will render this video, and it will usually make it available within 24 hours or so on YouTube under the live stream channel, under the lives. I'll also take a version of this, clean it up a little bit, and I will actually create a webinar replay page with a link to what is left of whatever package we're offering. So there'll be two ways that you can get access to the replay. You can wait for it to render on YouTube, or you can hit the replay page. I'll probably send out an email blast or two to let you know when that is available. Okay. So Denise is asking, how do facial expressions relate to money relationships? Ooh. Expressions or architecture, they're different. Okay, when I talk about architecture, I'm talking about the bony prominences and the depressions in the face. So here's bone, here's a depression, here's bone, here's bone, right? That's architecture. Expressions are dynamic facial configurations of facial muscles that happen in the moment. So it's important that when you're going to ask a question, that both parties are clear on the definitions of that. So, all right, let me go ahead and just do one last call. All right, well, let me answer the questions first. Let's go ahead and, so how do facial expressions relate to money relationships? Facial expressions don't. Facial architecture does. So in this part of the face, specifically, you have multiple data points that we can look at. But I'm going to make it super, super basic. In your actual training, you're going to get a much more deeper treatment of this area of the face. But the top here is where is a hologram of your crown. And this indicates how energy comes into the body. Energy is a metaphor, money is a metaphor for energy. So if this area is big and wide and open, more energy can come in, therefore more money can come in. This is the funnel, right? The energy comes in the top of the funnel and it flows down and it comes out the bottom of the funnel. The nostrils themselves indicate how the money goes out. So the different size and shape of the eye and the nostril aperture itself will determine your spending habits, right? And I found these to be particularly useful in understanding how people are going to spend the money they accumulate. So if you believe that changing your facial architecture can impact how you express yourself, which the more I'm in this work, the more of it I see. A very well-known face reading instructor would tell you, if you want more money to come in, shave your eyebrows, widen this area so more can come in, right? But that indicates how energy flows into your body. And so it's usually a direct metaphor for how you spend. Now, here's the beautiful thing, and it's important to understand this. None of your features are static. All of your features change all the time. They just change very subtly depending on what you process, what new issues you have, what your lifestyle is like, what your behaviors are like. Your face is constantly morphing. So if you don't like the way the characteristics, a certain quality or a certain trait is indicating, if you intentionally change the behaviors or the emotional program running under the surface, and then the behaviors change as a result of that, that trait will change. If you suddenly, through an act of will and financial control, change your spending habits, believe it or not, your nostrils will change to a certain degree, right? What I can't predict is the degree and how long that will take. But I've seen changes happen in seconds, and I've seen changes morph over time, right? So again, the face, remember, if you really stop for a moment and buy into what quantum physics and quantum mechanics is telling us, all you really are is light and space. And the density, the vibrational density of the light that makes you up changes as your emotional density changes. Well, if you pass light through a dense medium, it refracts, right? If you take a flashlight or a laser pointer, right, and you shine it into the top of a fish tank, you won't see a straight line. The line will enter here and it'll show up over here. Why? Because that light is bent and refracted because it's passing through a denser substance. Well, that's all you are from a quantum mechanics, quantum physics perspective, is nested layers of emotional density, light. And as that vibrational density changes, the angle of refraction changes and you look different. Now, we can understand that abstractly. And until you actually see faces change right in front of you, it's kind of more about, yeah, right, David, whatever, right? But don't take my word for it. Get the training, do the training, watch the effects of what you do. You'll be amazed and the world will open its secrets to you, okay? Can you tell personality types such as avoidant, anxious, or secure? Okay, so now you're asking about neuroticism and attachment styles and things of that nature. So what you're gonna see is usually much softer features. You'll see a lot of flaccidity around like the mouth. Prominent brow bones are almost always a sign of very dominant tendencies. So there are certain facial characteristics that you can look at and start to extract if somebody's going to be more anxious, avoidant, things of that nature. If the features themselves are very small, you're usually going to see somebody who is a little bit more on the avoidant side, or many times they will be very, very aggressive. But the reason that they're aggressive is because they're trying to compensate for the fear that they feel. A lot of times you'll see people with very small ears being very, very acting like little daredevils and Napoleons and stuff like that. And it's because they're trying to overcompensate for what they feel inside. And so these people will often take on daredevil-like behaviors to demonstrate that they're not afraid, right? If you see a lot of, again, furtive eye movements, things of that nature. You're welcome, Robert. All right. So there are ways to do that, but it takes a little bit more balancing between passive profiling, which is what this class is talking about, and active profiling, which is more micro expressions. And you'll see it a lot more in hand movements, voice tonality, eye frivolation, or nystagmus will determine high levels of neurological stress, which is almost always what you see in people who are highly avoidant or anxious. They're operating on a much higher level of neurological arousal, and so they'll be much more mobile. Their body will leak all kinds of nervous energies and things of that nature. So that's an active profiling tactic, right? But if we look at what's consistently there, we know what the bedrock is upon which those particular traits are manifesting. All right. So last call, guys. Remember that when I log off, the super cool fast action bonuses go away. And again, we're offering the Secrets of Face Reading home study course at $19.97. We're going to throw in absolutely free the Defense Against the Dark Arts home study course, the Real World Hypnosis Identity by Design Hypnotherapy Certification home study course, the People Reading for Fun and Profit home study program, the NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring 3-month trial, plus access to the video archive of the entire 15 years of training that we've done. You're going to get Face Reading for Fun and Profit Level 2, the home study course, and you're going to get that special VIP ticket to our 3-day advanced face reading certification on love, lies, leadership, and oh so much more, scheduled for April 10th through the 12th, live on Zoom. Total package value on this, if you're to do the math, pardon me, is $13,732. We're going to give it all for you to one loan installment of just $797. And if you want, you can break that up into 3 easy installments of $297 each. And to take advantage of your program and grab it before they're all gone, please, please, please click that link and give us a call at 858-282-4663. That's 858-282-4663. Or just click the link in your chat, nlppower.com/FACE, face, nlppower.com/face. Click the links right now. And pardon me. If you enjoyed today's training, please like and share. Tell people about it. Point them at the link. Let them come to the trainings. Deborah says, David, you are an amazing font of knowledge. Thank you so much. My pleasure. That's what I'm here for, right? I'm here to make the world a better place, one person at a time, starting with you. In the words of the immortal Carol Burnett, I'm so glad we had this time together just to have a laugh or sing a song. Seems we just got started, and before you know it, comes the time we have to say so long. Good night, everybody. I love you all. Click those links. I'll see you on the other side. Take care.